Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where three grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name is Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is Fred from How to RPG and the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett.
Hello.
Hello, I'm here.
I'm back.
Back.
We're back.
Back again.
So today, I realised, or Fred was tossing up some ideas of what he wanted to talk about, and it has become the 40th anniversary of the original Terminator film, which was released in October 26, 1984.
Holy shit, that makes me feel old. Old is old.
Yeah. And I remember when I threw that list together, I was looking at movies that had really small budgets and made a fuckload of money. Compared to their budget. Not necessarily hundreds of millions of dollars, but compared to their budget was tiny, and the perceived success possibility was low, and they did really, really well.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if you've got that, I've got that right in front of me. Terminator, $6.4 million budget, made $78 million.
So you're talking about the first one. I thought the budget was actually listed, when I checked that out, is actually listed as being $6.4 million, and it made $78 million profit worldwide.
That's exactly what I just said.
Oh, is it? I'm so tired. I apologize, people. Change of season and hay fever and so forth. My brain is.
You redacted my facts with the same facts.
All I heard was 2.4 million. I was like, no, it can't be 2.4 million. No, that doesn't seem right at all. Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm going to let you do the talking, and when you ask me a question, I'll respond. Because I'm clearly not. I obviously need to drink some tea.
So, with the original Terminator turning 40, I just thought I'd ask the question, why has the franchise endured despite many sequels being disappointing? And I thought we'd just go through each film. Some films we're going to have a lot more to say about than other films, but I think we should look at as an overall franchise. So we'll kick it off with 1984, The Terminator, written and directed by James Cameron, his first film, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator, or T-800, Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor, and Michael Biehn as Carl Reese. In 1984, a cyborg assassin...
Bain? I think it's Bain, right? Michael Biehn.
Yeah, it might be Bain. Yeah, Michael Biehn. He's great in this film.
Right.
In 1984, a cyborg assassin is sent from the future to kill Sarah Connor's, whose unborn son will lead humanity in a war against machines. A soldier is sent back to protect her, setting off a tense battle for survival. This film's great.
Yeah. So me and my dad had a tradition where I would come home from school and he was home from work. And I think in 84 he was driving trucks at the time. And we'd be like, what do we do? And it's like, let's go get a movie. So we'd drive down to the video store. And we'd rent out a movie, and of course there was slim pickings, and we went through pretty much everything. And he brought home Terminator. I picked Terminator, thinking it was just like there's a lot of really shitty sci-fi movies around that era, and the Terminator didn't look like a big budget movie. It looked like a one hit wonder animatronic thing. Didn't know any of the stars, but it didn't really know Arnold Schwarzenegger either, obviously.
You couldn't pronounce it. No one knew how to pronounce the word Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. And we put it on, and right from the get-go, that music and everything, and like the first opening scene, and we were hooked into it. And at the end of it, it was good and enjoyable, but I wouldn't say it was a world-shaking, like we'd just seen something revolutionary or anything, because it was very much in tone with movies at the time. It was just a particularly good one. But the ending was predictable. And it was, lots of guns and violence and stuff, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was this beast. So it was a spectacle for sure. But yeah, and then it just started because that view at home audience and the video market thingy. I think that majorly contributed to the second movie. And the second movie, Arnold was much better known. They put lots of budget into it, and the second movie was really a whole different kettle of fish from the first one. Yeah, it was a yeah, but I think that it needs to be said that the first movie at the time was not a big deal. It wasn't a box office, blockbuster. It was really just popular on rent to view, video cassette sort of thing, right at the sort of start of that market. Yeah. So for me, nostalgia wise, it will always be a favorite because that was a movie that me and Dad watched together. Yeah. So that in that regard, and I guess it was like really contemporary at the time of movies at the time, and so it's got the nostalgia for me because it's very 1984. Like everything in the movie is contemporary of 1984. The cars, the clothing, the hairstyles, the Walkman that she's dancing around in, and her flatmate is dancing around the kitchen and stuff, having an iguana for a pet. The derpy boyfriend with his stupid like sex call on the telephone and getting the wrong person. That actually happens, back in 1984 because you don't know who's on, who answers the phone and stuff. So yeah, it was really good.
So for me, the Terminator movie was an odd thing because I was 13 when it was released. And I did not see it at the movie theater. I did not know it existed until I had friends at school tell me that there's this really cool movie called The Terminator and you should see it. And the premise is this terrifying machine that's can't be killed, is unstoppable and indestructible, and you can't reason with it, and you can't bargain with it, and it just feels no pity and no remorse, and it's never going to stop trying to kill this woman called Sarah Connor, who's responsible for having a baby that becomes the leader of the resistance and whatever. And I heard this and I was like, this sounds really shit, and I did not want to watch it. But my brother eventually got the movie on on a VHS, and we did watch it. And my first response to seeing the movie is I did not like the movie. I really didn't like the movie at all because it was terrifying. It starts off with a scene of the future, which is just unbelievably bleak. And you think, shit, what am I dealing with here? This is not the first scene you expect. You know what I mean? If I'd started off with a scene with Sarah on a moped driving around, I would have expected that's an 80s movie. But that's the scene you get, and you're like, oh my God, am I in a full-blown science fiction war movie here? Is that what I'm dealing with? And then you get the rest of it, then they switch over and you see a different picture. And it starts slow and it looks like a normal world, and it slowly starts to twist, and then it ramps up, and that music did not help, that thump 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 sound. And at the end, I remember just feeling exhausted, terrified, and I was completely convinced that they were fucked, that there's no way that thing was going to stop, that Sarah Connor was dead. I was like, how can are we going to get one of those stories, because they used to do that occasionally, make a story where everybody dies and nothing good happens, and they just start off slow and just torture you and then finish off with guess what, the world sucks. So I didn't like the movie, but not because it wasn't a good movie, but because it pushed all the buttons that really terrified me in many respects. And that thing climbing out of the flaming wreckage in the movie at the end is probably the one scene that terrified me the most. I was like, oh my gosh.
That scene is actually the concept of the film. So I've got some fun facts. So just stop me anytime you want to dive into any of these. Sorry if my dog's barking. My neighbour's having an open home and my fucking dog's losing his mind outside. So, origin of the concept, inspired by a fever dream that James Cameron had of a metal death figure emerging from fire. So that's where he came up with the concept. He had to settle out of court with the creator of The Outer Limits because it had similarities to a episode known as Soldier. He originally sold the script to Gowland Hurd for $1 with the condition that he could direct it. At the time, he was just a model maker. I think he was doing stuff for TV shows.
Battle Beyond the Stars, I think he
Battle
worked
Beyond
on.
the Stars. Yeah, no, that was a really crap movie, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Alternative casting. O.J. Simpson was considered for the role as T-800, but he was dismissed because he was apparently too nice,
Right.
and they couldn't see him as a killer.
Fair enough. As you would expect from OJ. Do you know the interesting thing about James's nightmare fever dream is he was actually in a French hospital when he had a fever, and he didn't have very much to do at the time, and he wound up pondering all sorts of ideas for movies because he wanted to make movies. And this is where the seed came that you just mentioned. It's really weird, the origins and the people they considered to play various roles for this movie. It's really odd.
Here's some other options that was considered for Carl Reese at the time. Sting, Bruce Springsteen, and Mel Gibson.
Wow. Sting would have been perfect for it.
Well, you've missed one.
Who?
Arnold Schwarzenegger was
actually
supposed to be playing Carl Reese as well. That was the character he was supposed to play. And James Cameron didn't want him.
No, but he talked him into being the bad guy, but he didn't want to be because he didn't want to get typecasted because he's Eastern European, and he felt like he would just get typecasted as the bad guy because he already had sort of a goal of being a superstar.
Well, I saw interviews with those two about how that actually happened, and apparently it was the studio who insisted that Arnold Schwarzenegger play Carl Reese, and his agent also wanted to play that part. They wanted to play a part which had lots of dialogue, and there was lots of dialogue. There's a lot of exposition in this movie, right? And Carl Reese does all that exposition, and so they're like, "Yes, I want that." And then Arnold read the script and actually liked the Terminator character more, but he was going to interview for Carl Reese. But also James Cameron did not like the production company that was providing the money, saying, you need to use Arnold Schwarzenegger. He went to pick a fight with Arnold and then found that Arnold was actually a really nice guy, and realized that Arnold and himself had the same idea. He would actually be better as a Terminator. He's looking at Arnold and thinking, actually, you would work. You would work, but it would be a different Terminator compared to what I had in mind. Since we were talking, we're thinking about Lance, but you'd actually make a pretty good Terminator. And Arnold's like, that's the character I want to play. So that's sort of how it all wound up happening.
It doesn't make sense as well because the Terminator is meant to, it's all about infiltration and blending in. And that guy doesn't blend in. He stands out like a sore thumb. He's so massive. Linda Hamilton performed with a broken ankle during some key scenes.
I think that was almost all scenes. I remember Gail saying that they had to ice and wrap her ankle, which she broke, the entire movie. So every scene she's running, she's actually got a slight limp if you watch. And and there's a good reason for that. And there was a lot of swearing going on from her, and a lot of frustration because she was in pain the whole time, and she's got to run more than anybody else.
Also, Bill Paxton's in the movie. We often forget that. Much big star later on. He's one of the punks that is approached by Arnold Schwarzenegger as soon as he comes out, walking down the street naked in a very famous scene.
Yeah, he's the punk leader, isn't he?
Yeah. He's like, nice. He's like, nice night for a walk. Nice night for a walk.
The blue spiky hair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's kind of a throwaway scene, but it's great because that's the first time he killed somebody by just punching straight through them, and you see that he's just a killing machine. Yeah, and then of course he's got that iconic look after it when he walks out with wearing the leather jacket and stuff.
I love that meme how Carl Reese arrives naked and the first thing he does is put on a homeless person's pants.
Yeah. Mugs of homeless guy. Stole my pants. Yeah, he's got that scavenger cockroach vibe to him, and also
He
just
is
like
so good in this film. He makes the film for me more than Arnold almost. His character is because he gives, like you say, he gives all the exposition, and he's giving it during action scenes as well. Like it's
and he
so
takes
lean.
it totally. He plays it totally seriously.
So while
yeah.
they're being chased and he's driving the car, he's giving the exposition of what's going on and stuff. It's really clever like that.
And the intensity of his character is really important to carry the story too, because she doesn't know whether he's a nut job, and a nut job would be that serious about it and that intense. And it's only when the Terminator reveals itself to people that he isn't the bad guy anymore. But yeah, at no point is he considered the hero by anybody in the story, really.
Right.
So he's very much a noble sacrifice, a martyr to the story the entire way through. And he's not even the main. He's just a soldier that's sent back by the guy that So it's just like, and also you realize at the end of the movie, it's like that's his dad that he sent back, and he never told him that he was his father. So yeah.
So apparently James Cameron realised there was a lot of exposition and information that needed to be presented, and the only character who knew everything was Carl Reese. And Michael was saying that usually exposition kills a movie. Like as soon as you have exposition dumps, it's a disaster for a movie. And he said what James did was he ensured, just as you mentioned, he delivered all those lines during the middle of fast action scenes, driving around in the car through the streets, going the bat out of hell. And he said he got so into it that he ripped the actual steering wheel off the steering column.
Yeah, he's intense in this film.
Yeah. Another thing that really stands out in the movie is the first time that I've ever seen a high-powered laser and what it does to a human body depicted accurately. So when that laser hits that person right at the start sequence and they explode and there's just like some clothes coming flying off them, that's what a laser does. When a real high-powered laser hits you, it makes the energy transfer causes an explosion. Which is a lot of people don't realize. It doesn't just burn straight through you. That energy's got to go somewhere. When it hits basically a big sack of water like we are, you go boom. Yeah.
Arnold only said 58 words in this film.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's probably good. That was enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. Yeah.
T800. It probably hasn't got a big vocabulary.
And he did change. I'll be back to I will be. Like it was almost I will be back, but he didn't think that sounded right. So that's an Arnie change, which worked out well. In Poland, the film was called The Electronic Murderer.
Right.
And Peter Cullen, who was the voice of Optimus Prime, narrated the trailer.
I don't think I ever saw the trailer for it. Yeah.
Random facts I picked up. And Lance Hendrickson is in this film somewhere.
He's one of the
he's
police.
a cop.
He's a police cop. He was actually supposed to be the Terminator, and that was James's first instinct was to have Lance Henrik play the Terminator, who would just pop out of the crowd and attack things. And so
how ironic.
He was supposed to go to a meeting with James because James was trying to sell the idea to the production company to get the money. And Lance showed up early in the office, dressed up as a Terminator with a cyborg eye and so forth, and the makeup. And he didn't say anything. He just sat down and just did weird things looking around, and it scared the bejesus out of the secretary and the people in the office, and they were ready to actually call the police. And then James just showed up and said, "Oh, hi, Lance, you're already here." And then they realized that it was not some sort of strange freak who had just walked off the street, who was about to sort of lay waste to the place. So
he's an odd-looking dude as well.
Yeah. And of course, he goes on to be one of the most famous artificial people ever from the Alien movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
James
So he was actually the first pick.
So James got his wish.
Yeah. But his depiction of the Terminator was more like a praying mantis. And that's sort of what he was going for. But that never got realized because he wound up playing the cop and Arnold played the Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this a lot of this
the best decision, actually.
Probably a lot of this success of this franchise is just down to dumb luck and
Mm,
casting. I
mm.
mean, if it was O.J. Simpson with trying to kill Bruce Springsteen, I don't think it would have been the cult film it is today.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, Bill Paxton was the first character killed in the movie by the Terminator. That's his
Oh yeah,
notable.
because he comes back in that other one. They de-age him. Oh, they use. I'm pretty sure they use. Anyway, we'll get to that film.
Yeah.
Anything else on the original OG?
I actually got heaps. I did so much research.
Go for it,
So
Fred.
one of the things I noticed is this movie is obviously a horror, a thriller, and an action movie. Science fiction, of course. But they mix slow motion leading up to a major event, usually a death of somebody, and they interpose that with fast action-paced stuff to create tension. So just you got all this fast movement and action, and then they slow it all down, and then you get the death scene. And they did that quite a lot. So it was quite a common technique. It was quite deliberate by James. If you look at how the Terminator and Arnold moves, and he searches and moves like a shark, particularly when he is in the cop car. And this is again is designed specifically to increase the audience's fear of the cyborg, because it's quite off-putting the way that he moves in that cop car, and when he's doing anything, frankly. And if anybody remembers and I'm sure they probably do, the 30 cops that are killed in the police station, like that, I'll be back. Part of the reason it worked is before all that whole scene started to unravel, the audience could already guess that the Terminator was not just going to stop because there was a police station or there was a police officer at the reception desk at this point. Like everybody after that, like he's coming back and he's definitely coming back. And it's going to be a big way. So it wasn't, it was not actually a huge surprise to suddenly see him drive a truck, or a vehicle into the police station, and then just go to town. So when he actually kills all 30 police cops in the station, the audience at this point, and I also felt the same way, realizes that there's absolutely nothing capable of stopping the cyborg. They've set it up right there. You already got the feeling that he couldn't be stopped because he's been shot and he didn't die. But it doesn't matter how many people they throw at him. It doesn't matter what they throw at him. He's just going to keep going, and he that's it. There's nothing they can do.
There's only one real bit of lightness in the movie. Well, that's the interaction between Paul Winfield, who plays the police chief, Ed Traxler, and he's smoking a cigarette and he lights another cigarette. Was like a classic cop comedy thing, and like how bad the coffee is and stuff like that,
Yeah.
And then the psychiatrist guy, who's a reoccurring character, as well, he doesn't really play much of a part in this at all.
No.
He's just like, listen to this nut job when they're talking about Michael Baine's character, and that's where another bit of the exposition comes in as well, where the police are interviewing him, and that's the most sort of crazy bit of the exposition where you first learn of what's going on. And then, of course, the cop station just gets the shit kicked out of it by Arnold blowing everybody away, which is great in itself. And that was before, of course, things like that actually happened in real life because of people playing Grand Theft Auto. And there was a very famous dude who's a Grand Theft Auto player, and he literally mowed through a police station with headshots. And everybody was like, maybe these games are bad.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that Arnold did all of his own stunts with really little thought to his own safety. And James always felt that was really impressive. Part of the reason is the budget was so low, they could not afford the stuntman to do it, or find a stuntman the right sort of body type and size to measure up to Arnold. Arnold's body shape was just enormous. And the only time that Arnold apparently was actually concerned, or mostly concerned about his safety, was not going through windows, fire, having to smash his fist through a car window or anything like that. No, It's when they decided they were going to use mild acid and pour it on his leather jacket so that when he stood up, he smoked.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, I'm not really convinced that mild acid is going to be a good idea. He said that was
It's like, why not dry ice? Come on, guys.
yeah.
That car window scene where he smashed through the car window, that was filmed without a permit on a public street. And I think that was a real car window.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a hydraulic arm. I believe they used the one where he jumps on front of the car and he punches it through.
Oh, yeah, through the front of the car, but the side window
Side one.
thingy. Yeah, that's yeah. I dare actually no, don't try this at home. But yeah, that's not easy.
Yeah. James Cameron kept getting stopped by the cops, and he'd just tell them that it was a student film.
Yeah,
and he'd get a small fine, and then fuck off or something.
Yeah, these days you just say we're YouTubers.
So apparently that scene was shot in two parts, and what essentially happened is that Arnold went up to it wasn't even a car that they had the rights to. It was somebody else's car.
Right.
He just punched through the window, and they had no permit that day. There was three of them. James was hiding on the other side of the street behind a car and zoomed in so he could get the shot. Arnold punched through, and as soon as he did that and climbed in, they stopped. They said, okay, we're going to get out of here before the police shows up. And everybody's assumed over the years that they just punched in somebody's window and took off to avoid the cops so they didn't get done for not having a permit and for smashing somebody's window. They did actually pay for the person's window.
I'm
they
sure
took
they
down
got
the number plate and they did pay the person repairs. So the repairs were done. So yeah.
And the anecdote of like, well, that was my car in the movie. Yeah, that would have been worth it.
Yeah,
I would have been okay with that.
They left a note.
Yeah.
Also, Stan Winston was not the first person they decided to look at doing a lot of the special effects for this movie. But he wound up doing the prosthetics, the animatronics, along with a big, huge team, which, of course, I still think looks amazing today, considering when it was made.
Oh, yeah. Stan Winston's a legend.
He's probably worthy of an episode, Stan Winston.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's like as important as Ray Harryhausen, I would say.
So Stan has said that this is probably the one movie that he's made that was probably not as technically advanced as some of the other movies he's done, but he said in terms of story and the type of story being told, he felt like that out of all the movies he's ever done, that was the best one. And another thing that was really interesting was it took Stan a long time to convince James that they could just build the whole thing, the full T-800 as a robot and have a half version, and it would work. Not just use stop motion for everything, which was essentially what they were kind of planning to do initially.
I think it's only that bit when he comes out of the flames is the only real stop motion scene, isn't it? When you first reveal the ectoskeleton or whatever it is.
There's some bits with the hydraulic press thingy where it's stop motion as well. But that's about it. Yeah,
It's
just when they're pulled back in the scene and stuff.
It's very clever at appearing to be a much bigger film than what it actually is. Like the way it uses the lighting and even when it goes through the futuristic to show you what the future's like. Just considering the budget, it does create this illusion of it being a much bigger canvas. It's very clever like that.
Yeah.
Also, James stylistically decided to shoot the movie primarily at night, which the producers did not want because it would increase the cost of the movie.
Less police at night.
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. But his concept was that it for a horror to work, it needs to be dark, it needs to be night. And most of the scenes, even the when they have the day scenes, they're all indoors, so you don't see much of the light. The vast majority of the movie is done at night, and that is to use the dark to increase the fear in the audience during the story. It's a very smart way, and I think it's one of the things that a lot of the other movies fail to understand, that it's very hard to get scared if you're not in the dark. So, putting it at night's a smart move. I believe that also James saved money. He told Arnold to bring a costume. I think the costume itself, my understanding was pretty basic. It wasn't anything huge, and literally Arnold just had that in the back of his car. And then the story goes that somebody asked him about why he was carrying this costume in the back of his car. What was the boots and the jacket for? And he said, "Oh, it's for a shitty little movie. There's a nothing movie." But the funnier thing is, every time you hear that story, it doesn't coincide with the stories that Arnold believed in the movie more than anybody else. This is all of the publicity, hype behind. Arnold was always believing in the movie, but truthfully, Arnold did not believe in the movie. He really thought it was just okay, I get to make some money and I'm playing this character, which I kind of like, and that's about it. But you also notice the movie presents 3 different views. You get Sarah Connor's view of the world, you get Carl Reese's view of the world, and then you get the Terminator's view of the world, even through his own eyes. This is one of the things, when you
I'd
see
argue you also get to see the detective's view of the world as well.
Yeah.
Like it's full moon, what's going on? Oh, it's a copycat killer. Oh shit, what do we have to deal with here? And then it's completely not what they thought it was.
Yeah. It's almost like those slasher films like Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
Except
it's like they only start paying attention when they say, "Oh, he's working his way down a list in the phone book." So,
like this generation,
we need to find this person.
Like kids today would watch it and go, What's a phone book? What's a phone booth?
Yeah.
What's a phone booth? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a lot of it, you'd have to explain a lot of it.
They'd be like, "That's so stupid. Why would you have your name listed with your address and stuff?" It's like it was a different time, man.
Yeah.
A different time.
Also, Sarah Connor's character, when they were picking the actress, needed to be a soft-spoken, normal woman, but also be able to play a victim, and then also have to play a strong heroine at the end. So there's a transition, like three different transitions. So they knew that they had to find somebody who could do all of that, and Linda Hamilton was the one they picked. But a lot of the story concept and the way they wanted to have that story line up and work is because James Cameron was influenced heavily by the Alien movie, which of course had a female heroine in it, Ripley. And so this is why the movie itself has many things in line that follow the same sort of structure as the Alien movie made by...
Actually, you can feel elements of both. He seemed to be inspired by both Ridley Scott's Alien and also John Carpenter's Halloween. It's like he'd taken those key elements, then added a sci-fi twist to it.
Yeah. And Michael Biehn was... who's playing Reese, had to play 2 different types of character. He had to play the hardened warrior, but also had to play the vulnerable person to appeal to Sarah, because the hardened warrior is not something that Sarah was going to be attracted to. So they had to, and Michael in the past had mostly played vulnerable characters. So they kind of lucked in pretty well with Michael. And when he went to do the audition, he was speaking in a southern accent, and they didn't like it. And they were saying, "Well, we really like your performance, but the southern accent, we just don't think it's too regional." And he said, "I'm not southern." Apparently, he had been doing an interview for an audition for another part, and he had to use a southern accent, and he hadn't been able to get rid of it, so he had to come back and do the audition again. And they were happy the second time around. But that's a funny thing.
All right, anything else before we move into T2? Or
Fantasy 2 did all the special effects in the first movie and the second movie. A lot of the robots, war scenes, all that sort of stuff was done by them. The movie was delayed for 10 months because Arnold had to play the Conan character in another movie, and the director didn't really want to give up Arnold. He felt like they were pinching his actor, so they had to put it on hold, which is why they lost all the permits. They initially had all the permits set up, but then 10 months later, they had to look at a completely different location. They're now looking at the worst parts of LA as their shooting place, which is a bit awkward, hence no permits. James Cameron did all the storyboarding himself in those 10 months and had to survive because he had no money on food coupons that his mum was sending him.
Yeah, he was sleeping in his car during a lot of this as well.
Yeah, and that nightclub, Technor, was so convincing that after they finished filming, there were people who wanted to pay to go into the nightclub, even though it was a fake nightclub, and they were thinking about charging people. And then at the very end, the producer decided that would have caused too much trouble, even though they were strapped for cash and they really could do with it. Yeah. They also set aside, this is one of those funny times where James and the producer, I think Gail, isn't it, arranged for money to be set aside for reshoots, because they knew that they wouldn't necessarily know what the movie would be until they get into the editing, and they knew they would have to do pickup shots. So they actually set money aside for that, which the production company that was funding them didn't want them to do, but they knew they had to do it. So they had to do a lot of guerrilla film production after, because there's no permits, got to do pickup shots, got some money for a couple of different individuals and cameras, and that's pretty much it. But that's why they were able to bring it all together. And special effects in this movie, this is where they use forced perspective with the models in the war scene. They use back and front projection heavily. They did the same sort of thing, but more advanced in the second movie. And the special effects was heavily practical, like practical effects almost exclusively, models, miniatures. And I believe the music for this movie, which carries on to all the movies, is actually the heartbeat of the cyborg. So the person who actually designed the music for it is actually, it was thinking in terms of that heartbeat. As I said, I did a shite load of research on the first Terminator.
So it's an iconic theme.
Yeah, it is.
It's really good. Yeah, so I'll give this film a thumbs up.
Yeah. It's taken me,
and
yeah. I didn't like thumbs up. My thumbs down the first time I saw it, just because it terrified me so much. But after watching it and kind of giving it a bit of time to stew, I can't dispute it's a fantastic movie.
It's a lean, mean.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
lean, mean.
It's
film
a rewatchable movie that doesn't get old. It stands the test of time. I've got an interesting fun fact for people who don't know this. Linda Hamilton is a twin, and her twin sister appears in three different scenes in the second movie.
I've got that down on my fun fact list.
All right, yeah.
Should we get into the second film?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. All right. Terminator 2, 1991, Judgment Day. So James Cameron also directed and wrote this film. Arnold Schwarzenegger is back as the T-800. Linda Hamilton is back. We got Edward Furlong as John Connor and Robert Patrick as the T-1000. A decade after the actual events of the first film, a more advanced Terminator, a T-1000, is sent to kill John Connor, the future leader of the human resistance. To protect him, a reprogrammed T-800 is also sent back. Together with Sarah Connor, they must fight to prevent Judgment Day and stopping Skynet from rising.
Yeah, lots of firsts in this movie. Like the idea of mimetic polyalloy, for instance, was way outside most people's even concept of what like nanotechnology and stuff could do in the future. And we still haven't seen anything quite close to it yet. But I'd say it's on its way.
Yeah, like James Cameron had really, since 1984, had really worked on a lot of films and was starting to get more confident and more breaking boundaries, I want to say, with special effects, which he's gone on to do since with the Avatar films. So this one really came off the back of The Abyss, with a special effect he was using for The Abyss, and then he applied that effect. It's like a water weird, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. Dungeons and Dragons reference. So it's a big it's a being composed of liquid. Yeah.
Water weird. Yeah.
Water weird.
That's when I see a water weird. That's what that film comes in my mind. And he used that to create this new Terminator. This film. If the other film was, I thought this is one of the most tightest action films of all time. This film does not let up. You are sitting on the edge of your seat for the entire runtime. It's just constant.
Yeah. They hit the music notes perfectly. The characters were really well cast. The reoccurring characters are perfect as well when they realize that they're back in the nightmare again, and it's real, or it's not over. Particularly the psychiatrist. I love his role in this.
This film made me think.
Also, Linda Hamilton's transformation. Yeah, and the effect it's had on her life and stuff is quite dramatic as well.
Between this and Aliens, in my mind at the time, James Cameron was the king of sequels. He was the guy that should make all the sequels.
Yeah,
So,
arguably, this is one of those instances where the sequel is better than the original. At least, budget and all that sort of stuff wise, it just blew it out of the water. And special effects and everything. You could argue that the first movie was remarkable for what it achieved, but budget wise and big box office and the draw of Arnold Schwarzenegger later in his career, it was they were all at their peak. So there was a lot of hype about this movie too.
Here's some fun facts from this film from me. Arnold Schwarzenegger actually originally disliked the script. He didn't think the idea of not killing anyone in this film lined up with his character. Right. But James Cameron reassured him that it would be a great surprise and delight the audiences.
Yeah. It's like, much like you, Arnold, you have no choice in the matter. And it has no choice in the matter either. It wants to kill people. But it's programmed not to.
You can't dispute a T-800's work ethic.
Yeah. I must complain.
Linda Hamilton's condition, she agreed only if she could play a slightly crazier version of her character, reflecting the trauma and obsession with the future. She and physically as well, just a immense transformation.
Yeah, there's also deviations from the original book timeline, because there was novels and stuff that came out as well, and she was supposed to have died in between this movie and the next one, and there was also another one where she's jumped forward in time to get cured of cancer when she was originally supposed to have died of cancer in 2005. And there's lots of if you really get into the weeds of the deep lore between all the different series and stuff, they get very specific, the nerds, very specific. So
Billy Idol was actually considered as the role of the T-1000, but dropped out due to a motorcycle accident.
Oh, shit.
And Robert Patrick was cast to just be a complete contrast to Schwarzenegger's physique. The CGI of this film surpassed the entire budget of the first film.
Right. There's a lot of in terms of budget, there's a lot that surpassed the original film.
Yeah.
Linda Hamilton's twin sister and real-life identical twins were used in a lot of key scenes.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one as well, I believe. They used another identical twin as well, another side character. I can't remember. During the canal chase, they actually flew a helicopter underneath an overpass in a freeway.
Yeah, and did things with the motorcycle that God never intended.
Practical effects, including a cityscape model of Los Angeles with air mortars to simulate its destruction, and the sound of a T-1000 passing through the bars of the jail bars was actually the sound of dog food exiting a can.
Wow. If anything, I like that one. I mean, that's worth the entire podcast alone.
That's how.
Yeah. And that's been mimicked so many times, that scene, with the Pomeranian moving through some doors, how it's all fluff, that's really funny. And where he's moving through the bars and then his gun goes clink, because that's the bit that doesn't move and he has to adjust it. I think he played a Terminator so well, you believe that he's a machine, even though you never really see the machine side of him. Even towards the end, he's always polymorphing back into his cop form.
He played it so well that when you see him in other films, it's hard to not think of him as a T-1000.
Yeah.
Almost typecasted his entire career for me.
Yeah, that's a good sign that you play a villain very well, is when it sticks with you. Another one is the King Joffrey from Game of Thrones. That guy basically quit acting after that. Real nice guy though, apparently in real life.
So this movie, I don't have a lot to say about this movie. It had a budget of $100 million, but its worldwide profit was $521 million.
Yeah.
So if you think in terms of return, it this doesn't take into consideration the cut that the theatre gets, or marketing budgets and stuff like that. But it probably it probably made, as a ratio, less money than the first one. But because $521 million, that means a lot of people bought tickets compared to the first movie. I think financially, the first movie, for the money you put in, was probably better than the second movie. But the second movie is the one movie, and I always knew this was going to be the case. It's the one movie that, out of everybody, when they have to pick between the first one and the second one, the vast majority of people identify the second movie as being their favorite over the first movie. For me, it's not the second movie, because the second movie is full of jovialness. There's a lot of gags and play, and it's not as deep and dark. And in no way, for me, even though with the polymorphing, liquid metal Terminator, that I feel is terrified of that character, even though Robert did a great job, as what Arnold did in the first movie. I honestly think the first movie is superior, just for the fact that, honestly, when I first saw the CGI for the T-1000, it looked really strange and rather amazing. But as you rewatch it, I actually find it's not as convincing. And I was looking at some of the special effects, particularly when he takes the eye out in the first movie, and you see, in the face of Arnold, and you've got an eye that's moving around, and that scene looks a little out. But I actually find it takes me out of the movie more seeing the CGI of the T-1000. And I'm never been a big part, concentrated on special effects. I don't think that the quality of special effects in the first movie or the second movie ultimately is that important. I think it's more about the story. They tell two different stories. I actually think the first story is more compelling than the second story, but I feel like Terminator 2 was a good follow-up to the first movie, because it did try to do something different. Because now John is a delinquent. He's been born. Sarah Connor has gone mad and crazy and has become a military soldier, essentially. And we get
survivalist,
a survivalist, and we get the concept that she wants to stop Skynet from being created completely, which would end any chance of Judgment Day happening. Whereas before, the first movie was set up that Judgment Day was going to happen, but we needed to make sure that the leader was there to ensure they succeeded in the fight. Whereas this one was, let's try to stop Judgment Day completely. And that scene, it really sets in. You remember the scene with the atomic bomb going off when Sarah's looking at these kids playing in a park, and everybody just gets turned to ash and then blown apart?
It's been made into a meme.
It has.
Have you seen the meme of like just people having fun, not a single cell phone in sight?
Yeah, exactly. But it's such an important scene, because that was really sort of hammering home. I think James was trying to hammer home the importance of understanding how horrible the concept of having an atomic bomb go off and it killing people, because it's not, they're not dying in a way that we were normally familiar with. And I remember Stan Winston saying that shooting that footage and putting that together, he said, is probably the hardest thing he's ever had to do with his team, because it really was just awful to consider.
Yeah.
And he's done some pretty horrible special effects, all sorts of gore and so forth. And he said that was one of the worst things he's ever had to try to do.
Yeah, that's a generational thing too. Like Gen X people understand. Like my brother, when he was 15 or so when The Day After came out and stuff like that, and it was a real psychological load that our whole generation had to handle during the Cold War and everything. That the idea that at any time, and it was a real serious, the Cold War was a real thing, that at any time the entire world could end from stupid people throwing bombs at each other, and you're in a foreign country, you've got nothing to do with them, and that's the end of your world too, because of the superpowers deciding that they were going to end humanity. And that existential threat was just with you all the time. And so depicting that in a movie in a very visceral form was psychologically traumatic for an entire generation of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know what people generally think about it these days. I mean, there's still enough nuclear weapons for that sort of shit to happen.
Yeah,
But
there was two. There was The Day After, and there was also an animated one that was shown during school. I think The Way the Wind Blows, or I can't remember the name of it. Sorry,
yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I think we got shown The Day After at school. Like
Right.
you know, when they used to bring the monitor out in class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I think that's one of the most important scenes in that movie.
Arnold just drove past
Yeah,
AJ's
yeah.
house.
Yeah. But yeah, one of the most important scenes, and probably one of the most important sequences that, whatever future you think is going to happen, you can all make a change. You can make, and somebody is, something as simple as just a couple of individuals could stop something major happening. And we're talking about a major corporation.
That's a message that obviously James Cameron really cares about, because it sort of echoes through the Avatar films as well.
Yeah.
About environmental concerns and
and the same thing in the first movie, like, one person, an average person, Sarah, could wind up being the most important person in terms of the outcome of human history. And that comes out in the first movie and the second movie.
And the scene with Dyson where it's revealed to him, he cuts and reveals the truth of the matter, and that he's responsible, and his reaction at the end of it is visceral, like I want to be sick, and he completely changed, his entire worldview is just completely changed with that revelation. That was really well acted too.
Yeah.
One of the really interesting things about the second movie is both the first movie tells a great story. The second movie tells a different story, but it's a different type of story. It's less horror. It's more action. It's more thrills. There's a lot of comedy in this. It's got a lot of visual effects. It's got a lot of spectacle. But I honestly think that even though the second movie is beloved by so many, that it's probably ruined the franchise, because after the first movie came out and was financially successful, and the second movie came out, they wanted to remake the second movie over and over and over again. And they tried to follow that format, and they just couldn't duplicate what James had done. And I think the problem is you can't tell the same story over and over again, which is essentially what tended to happen. You are essentially telling the same story. The movie was successful, I think, ultimately in the franchise is because it was a science fiction horror. When people say the Terminator, the first thing you think about is, T2. But what you're really thinking about is the sheer horror of the first movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that the second movie sold, once a lot of people saw it, and it was more publicly digestible, because the second movie is much more digestible than the first movie. It's far more hardcore, the second movie, the first movie. That meant that people went back and they watched the first movie because they hadn't seen it. And I think that's probably what brought the franchise to a bit of a messy end, if you ask me. And even James has not been able to bring it back when he jumped back in. So
he's only ever jumped back in as a producer.
Yeah.
It won 4 Academy Awards. So it won Best Sound Effects, Best Makeup, Best Visual Effects, and Best Editing. So, and he was editing this film 74 hours before the final film was sent to theaters.
Wow.
Right up to the point. But Arnold had kind of also become a bankable star by then, and most of his action roles, he was known as the guy that had the witty one-liners, and I think they really doubled down on that in this film.
Yeah.
And that's why they made him, not the antagonist now, and so he had more dialogue. And
he had 17 lines in the first movie. So he was paid $75,000, which is the equivalent of about $214,000 these days. So it's still significant, but that was like $4,400 per word. And then in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, he got $15 million, and he had 700 words of dialogue. So that was about $21,000 per word. That puts it into perspective. Man, what a job, eh? There is a lot of standing around doing nothing on sets, though. So yeah,
and a lot of stunts.
and a lot of stuff.
I love this. I like this film a lot more than Terminator 1. It's and it is very similar to Aliens. How like Alien is a horror film, Terminator is a horror film, and then Aliens is an action film, and Terminator 2 is an action film, and then we don't talk about the rest. Well, we're going to, but it almost echoes.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Aliens and Terminator are almost the same, have the same problems, the same successes, and the same problems. It's quite funny.
Yeah, and they did things with vehicles in this movie that were quite amazing.
The vehicle chases in this film is amazing.
Next level. You don't see anything like that since until the Transformers movie. No, I'd say the Transformers movie probably earlier. Fast and Furious. I haven't seen all the Fast and Furious movies.
We're not going to talk about those films, surely. I find it's another film. It's got really excellent pacing. There's one good thing. James Cameron can make a long film and you cannot be bored by it. I find he is really good at like. There's a lot of directors that need to learn that lesson, including Ridley Scott, that make films that are way too overbloated, and they need someone needs to come back and go, mate, you need to trim it back. And James
Cameron like Americans really to break out of that that mold of like, we have to have a car chase, we have to have this, we have to have this. It's the formula of American movies, and it's just like the director's job is to blend in those requirements without seeming like it's been forced in there. A lot of movies don't do that very well at all. Like the car chase is just like, why are we in car chase? But Terminator really did it well. Did it quite well. And Terminator 1 did the car chase very well as well. They set it up earlier because in that original scene where the soldiers are on the thing and shooting and stuff, that was Carl Reese's reliving that, and he had flashbacks to like getting burnt and stuff like that as well. So it was really cool.
It really did flesh out the universe of the Terminator with Skynet. Because Skynet was just a passing reference, and now that became a big thing. It showed you the hunter killers. It did a lot of universe building, I guess, for the franchise.
And you got to see the prototypes of what but later became the Machine Army. And their security system and stuff. And also they preloaded, much like the first movie, they preloaded the motorbike chase scene because the kid, John Connor, was riding around on a motorbike at the start of it and listening to Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses has to be mentioned as well as being a major part of the movie.
Yeah, it was that music video was huge.
Icon of the time. Yeah.
And just, there was some cool, just the way he reloads the shotgun on the bike, we'd never seen anything like that before. Yeah, it was just the way they shot that scene. Apparently, James Cameron was on a motorbike in a buggy while directing, like following them during that whole scene as well. Just he's an insane man, James Cameron. He is completely insane. All right, shall we? Anything else on T2 before we get into the
other thing is when
diminishing returns of the franchise?
I remember watching an article, an interview with Arnold, when he's talking about where the two Terminators fight each other, and he says like that had never happened before, so this reprogrammed T-800 grabs hold of the T-1000, and then there's that moment where they go, and he doesn't move. It's against his programming. He's not programmed to fight another machine. And then he just gets owned, and it's a matter of that. But that was a really interesting acting tidbit from him. Is just like he was considering the fact that the machines were not programmed to fight each other, and it never happened before. And so there was a moment of uncertainty about his capabilities and stuff. And then of course he's like throwing each other through walls and stuff like that to make it all over the top.
Like, just little things like how they made. So John Connor we'd heard about, and they cast this kid at the time, Edward Furlong, and his mother was crazy. Like he thought his mother was crazy. She was put into a mental institute. He was going through foster homes and rebelling. And then but when he first sees Arnold come in, and he's got the gun in the, is it roses in a roses box?
Yeah, in a rose box.
And he drops that scene when they're going down the thing, and he's like, oh fuck, everything. And just the way they shot it, and you can see in the kid's eyes, everything my mother told me was true. This guy exists.
Yeah.
and he just thought he was fucked. And then he was like, then the next two, and then that from there on, that film just does not slow down at all.
I would have liked to have seen more of, like, because he was being trained by his mum, and you see that when he uses his hacking thingy to hack into the ATM to get it to spit out money, right? So he's already trained to beat machines and reprogram machines, and so that's a really good hint that of what his mother's upbringing. I would have liked to have seen him later on, like in the movie, have more of that, where he's got extra skills and stuff like that. He is actually a really important and skilled character. He's exceptional, but he just isn't exceptional for the rest of the movie. He's just tagging along pretty much.
Okay, should we move on to the...
Yeah.
Okay, 2003, we got Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. So what was that, 12 years later? 13 years later. This is directed by Jonathan Mostow. I don't know who that is. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Nick Stoll, Claire Danes, and Kristana Loken. A decade after the events of T2, John Connor lives off the grid to avoid Skynet, which sends a new advanced Terminator, the TX, to eliminate him and the others. The T-800 returns to protect him as Judgment Day becomes uneventful. 10 interesting... So here's some facts I learned about this film. So James Cameron wasn't involved at all. Arnold Schwarzenegger accepted the role mainly for financial reasons, with Cameron advising him, just take the money and run.
Yeah. The only thing that's more advanced about that Terminator is its ability to control other machines. Really, in every other respect, I thought it was a step back from the T-1000. The T-1000 was a much better machine.
Also, she could form weapons like flamethrowers and energy weapons and so forth.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but she had a lot of limitations. Like she was, beaten by a magnet essentially, which was kind of stupid. And the other notable thing, of course, is Arnold Schwarzenegger firing a minigun. That was pretty cool.
That was in the second movie anyway.
Yeah, it's in the second movie.
Oh,
yeah, that's
the whole the grave thing.
When he gets rid of the cops. That's the only time he's not allowed to kill anyone.
Right.
And he's firing the minigun and he does the death count.
Yeah. That whole bit where he's carrying the coffin.
This is the one with the coffin. Because
you get to see how strong the machine actually is.
So Schwarzenegger negotiated $3 million, private jets, luxury suites, 24/7 limo service, a custom trained gym, and 20% of merchandising for this film.
Holy shit!
He also, after the fall of Baghdad, Schwarzenegger also screened Terminator 3 for the U.S. troops in Saddam Hussein's palace.
Wow. Deep dive. Okay. Right. How bizarre would that be?
Due to substance abuse, unfortunately, Ed Furlong didn't return. He was replaced by Nick Stoll as John Connor. And my favourite fact, and you can find this on YouTube, there's a deleted scene showing the origin of the T-800 in which Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a sergeant with a strong Southern American accent called John Candy, I think his name is.
And that's like the model they used for the Skynet used for the machine. Interesting.
Yeah, and they get him in and he's looking at it, and so the guy that's making it has got Arnold's accent, his Eastern European accent, and they're looking at the design of this robot, and he's like going, "Yeah, looks great, really intimidating," and then the scientist goes, "Yeah, we just need to do something about the stupid accent."
Classic.
If you go on YouTube, you can find this clip. They decided not to use it, but to me, it's actually the best part of the film.
Well, I mean, let's get real. The third movie was, for me, a comedy, which was not scary. There were some horrible scenes in it, but it's the first time that the Terminator, I was like, is this the Terminator that's out to kill you? Because why am I getting an erection? it's not the exotic, it's the erotic. It's the erotic Terminator. It's like, come on, seriously, you cannot have a woman playing a Terminator compete with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It just does not work.
It's the Sperminator.
Yeah,
We've discovered
exactly.
the secret weapon that the humans are vulnerable to: boobs.
And then of course, I'm thinking this in the movie when I'm watching it the first time, and then they have her breasts expand. I'm like,
I mean, if I was an intelligent machine and fighting humans, there's certainly flaws in our design, and our vulnerability to boobs is one of them.
I remember fuck all about it. In fact, until I started going back through these films, I think I'd blended all these follow-up films into one film. I couldn't distinguish what parts were in what one.
The only one that really stands out after that is the Salvation, or
that's the next one. So yeah.
But I'm not throwing shade on the actress who played, the Terminator. Is it Christina Lauren? I think it's Christina Lauren. She did
Loken.
That's right.
Did she have any lines in the movie at all? Did she say anything?
I believe she did, but it was somebody else's voice.
Oh.
She was always duplicating somebody else's voice, pretty much.
Yeah.
But no, she did. She talked to a cop. I like your gun. I like your gun so much. Can I have your gun? So this is the erotic Terminator, and she did a good job of being the erotic Terminator, but not really a scary Terminator as far as I'm concerned. Not unless you had really bad divorce settlement issues. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Let's move on to the fourth one, shall we?
Yeah, okay.
And I don't think it was not a financially successful movie.
No, it felt like a weaker version of Terminator 2.
Yeah.
2009, we get Terminator Salvation, directed by Mick G, I think his name is. He was who rose to fame for Charlie's Angels. Christian Bale, Sam Worthington, Anton Yelchin, Bryce Dallas Howard, who's Ron Howard's daughter.
Yep.
Set in 2018, during the war against Skynet, John Connor leads the resistance while grappling with the emergence of Marcus Wright, a mysterious figure who is linked to Skynet. So this is actually Stan Winston's last film. So Salvation made the final film he would work on before he passed away in 2008. It's the first film to have no Schwarzenegger at all. There is a likeness that was digitally used for the T-800, but he did not appear in person in this film, as he was currently the governor of California. Also, no time travel. This is the first Terminator film that has no time travel as a plot device, and it's also the first one to show John Connor and Kyle Reese together. It had a $200 million budget, making it the most independently financed film of all time. And but unfortunately, the company that made it went for bankruptcy shortly afterwards because they lost so much money on the film. Unfortunately, and one of its most famous things it's known for is Christian Bale had a massive meltdown on set with the director of photography, which wwent viral and almost overshadowed the entire film's production.
Yeah.
I think the spirit and idea of the fourth movie seemed like a good idea. Let's show them the actual war between the machines and the humans with John Connor. The problem is, it just didn't work. It just didn't work, and people weren't really that interested. And I think this is the problem with franchises. Sometimes when you deal with a franchise, people cotton on to the wrong things. They were certainly trying to progress the story. I do not feel like the third movie needed to be made. It was telling the wrong story. It was telling you that Judgment Day was always going to happen and you just needed to survive Judgment Day, right? Whereas this was, okay, Judgment Day's happened. Now we're going to show you the war. It had the right idea. I just don't think it works. And I don't think that it will ever work because it's too depressing. I just don't think it's a wide release sort of movie that people want to see. War movies tend to be like this. It's very hard to get people to go to war movies, and that's essentially what you're dealing with. So, yeah, sad to see. I know most of the actors did the best they could in there to make it, to sell it. Christian may have been a little bit overzealous
Overachiever.
about things, and a bit taken in the whole thing just a bit too serious. But anyway, you know,
he was very intense. He was very intense. Character actor, method actor. Well, I don't think he's a method actor, but I mean, he's famous for his physical transformations for the roles, and that requires a certain amount of intensity to, like, particularly The Machinist, where he literally starved himself down to dangerous levels by just drinking lattes. I think was the only thing he really ate for a long time to get down to that level. And then, of course, then he was cast in Batman, and he showed up on set so bulked up they actually asked him to slim down because he was too muscular for Batman. Which is says something about him. It says a lot about him, really.
Yeah,
he's since chilled out a lot.
He has.
I think,
but
this is probably out of the recent Terminator films, this would be the best of the bunch for me.
I would agree. I've rewatched it, and I think, even though it was financially a disaster and it was probably not telling the story that we needed to see, they really did try very hard to make a decent movie.
It wasn't relying on.
It wasn't goofy, you know.
It was daring. It departed significantly from the formula from the other movies, which was refreshing. That's why it sticks out in my mind, is because you get to see other types of Terminator robots, like the fish ones, and you get to see a T-800 in a sort of in its proper place in the post-apocalyptic setting, where it's rising out of the junk and it's got bits of body hanging off it, and it's a really disgusting thing, kind of like the Warhammer 40k pariahs, how they've just got flesh over top of you hanging off them and stuff. And it's a horrific. It depicts it as a horrific thing again. Harkens back to its horror roots, that these guys are like, one of them can absolutely kill a whole bunch of people, and pin you down, and that they're a nightmare that can pop up at any time, and they're the relentless killers.
Yeah.
It didn't rely on nostalgia.
Much more that.
Yeah, it didn't rely on nostalgia.
That, but not quite as I wouldn't say. I don't think as scary as the first movie. I feel like, because they had advanced weapons, and they could kill these things, and they were fighting them. And
dark action film.
It was a dark action. Yeah, they got rid of all of the comedy one-liners, which tended to break the movie, I think, in many respects. Which is probably why it did not do well, because it's like I said, you can't make a war movie and think that a whole lot of people are going to go and see it. It just doesn't work.
I like how the Resistance was in a submarine. I thought that was a really cool twist on it as well.
We had Michael Ironside. Gotta love Michael Ironside.
Yeah, he's great. Oh, he's such a good actor.
And Blood Moon. I actually think Blood Moon and she did a pretty good job. The pilot.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So out of the new ones, it's probably the best one, I feel. Next, we got Terminator Genesis. Absolutely fucking stupid way of spelling the name Genesis as well. 2015, directed by Alan Taylor, who I think was riding high off Game of Thrones. I think he was a regular director on Game of Thrones. We got Arnold Schwarzenegger came back, Emily Clark from Game of Thrones, Jai Courtney. They love throwing Australians in as Kyle Reese, I noticed. Jason Clarke, another Australian. This one, the timeline resets to find Sarah Connor raised by an older T-800 with altered events. Sarah, Kyle Reese, and the Guardian face Skynet's latest iteration and its unexpected weapon.
Yeah.
So after the production company went bankrupt, Skydance and Paramount bought the rights. Alan Taylor, the director, said he was influenced by Back to the Future 2 and some advice from James Cameron. They decided to do a reimagined version of the first two films featuring time travel and multiverse with confusing and adding a new twist on John Connor.
And also a new twist one on Skynet's origin as well.
Arnold Schwarzenegger returned as the Terminator. He was aged up this time with a body double for younger scenes. Jason Clarke as John Connor and Jai Courtney as Kyle Reese, with Emily Clark as Sarah Connor. Had really good special effects, and it replicated a lot of the scenes from the original films. But I hated the twist, the John Connor twist.
Yeah,
and they spoilt it in the trailers as well.
Yeah, It was
they
badly
dabble
handled. It was like too deep in the weeds of nerddom. So it was really a fan theory movie that took itself too seriously and missed the mark. It wasn't familiar enough with people who are after the nostalgia. It had no satisfying twists, or it didn't add much to the lore of the movies. Well, I guess it was all about adding or twisting or subverting, and it was just like a one-trick pony sort of thing. And Arnold was not particularly convincing in it. And I got to say that the main sort of action hero guy was not good. Yeah, I didn't really believe him.
Jai Courtney, Captain Boomerang.
Yeah, just didn't gel with me at all.
Does anybody even remember the baddie Terminator?
Yeah, it was a pseudo nanomachine cyborg person.
Yeah. Does anybody ever care about that? Did you ever find that one scary in the slightest? No. So this is one of those times where this movie tried to go for nostalgia, which I think was a mistake. They clung on to the same characters, and I think this is where they needed to let go of Sarah Connor and John. They clung on to Arnold. I'm sorry, Arnold did a great job when he was younger, and he was convincing and scary when he was younger, but he just looks like an old man now.
What was he? He was a curtain salesman?
It doesn't matter. Yes, he was. He was a curtain salesman.
Curtains, wasn't it?
But
he was married as well.
Yeah, you can say
the franchise.
You can say, and as a robot, he was breaking down, and he's supposed to be facing a new machine. The thing he's facing against, the person who played that character, not intimidating, not scary in the slightest, not a match for a young Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
it's just like
I actually think
villain more than a.
Well, it's not even that. I think honestly, when you look at it, they needed to steer away from what they were doing with the first two movies and just do something else.
Skynet talking was never a good idea. Skynet being personified as an AI was that interacted with people was never a good idea. It should always have just been this cold, logical, completely separated, never interacts with humans thing. This is
the one that attempts to replicate the opening scene of the 1984 film right at the beginning, isn't it? This is this one?
Yeah. It starts. It starts off
with Bill. This is the one where Bill Paxton's back in it. I'm pretty sure, or a CGI version, because it's the bit where they get hassled by Mohawks and they go through the clothing store and everything like that. I'm pretty sure. See, it becomes foggy, doesn't it?
The reality is that this was too much nostalgia.
Yeah,
clinging to characters that needed to be moved on. I think that telling Sarah and John's story had been done and done well in the first two, and you needed to leave it be. And
the twist was shit as well.
The twist was terrible, and the story ultimately did not make a lot of sense, even though it was multiverse stuff. You know, it did not hold together very well. And it was a pop movie. It was a made specifically to be popular that nobody cared about, and wound up losing more money than the company could deal with and put them out of business. Yep. So yeah,
I'm pretty sure James Cameron gave this one the seal of approval as well, which he thought he kind of came out before it and was saying, "Hey guys, I've seen this one and it's good."
Yeah, no.
I just like to think that he had nitrogen narcosis at the time or something from diving too far.
Yeah, probably.
Shit title, shit twist.
Yeah,
that's my review.
Yeah,
I can learn how to spell Genesis. What was that about? Right, and finally we got in 2019 Terminator: Dark Fate, directed by Tim Miller, who was the guy that did Deadpool, the original Deadpool film. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton is back. Mackenzie Davis, Natalia Rees, and Gabriel Luna. Ignoring basically retconned every other film apart from T1 and T2. And it continued, I think that was quite popular at the time, didn't it? I know Halloween did the same. Kind of like a hard reset. And all those other films don't exist.
Alternate timeline, yeah.
So introduced Danny Ramos, a new target for Skynet successors, and Sarah Connor and a reprogrammed T-800 team up to protect her. So James Cameron actually is back as a producer. He insisted on Arnold Schwarzenegger returning and refused to make Dark Fate unless Arnold Schwarzenegger was involved, ensuring his long-time collaboration. Linda Hamilton advocated for Sarah Connor's character and actually did a lot of the dialogue herself for this, saying that she went through the script and tore out things she thought wasn't fitting with her character. Tim Miller was advocating for a R rating, deliberately putting in swear words so he could get it. And Linda Hamilton had a fake butt.
Yeah.
Apparently, she worked so hard to get in shape for a role that the crew ended up building her a prosthetic butt because she'd gotten too lean. Basically, Tim Miller and James Cameron butted heads a lot on this film. They disagreed a lot about the cast, a lot about the script, and it wasn't a very good collaboration. And a lot of it was scrapped with the final fight sequence being they thought it was too gruesome. Apparently, Carl's arm hangs off like jerky being torn, and they just thought that was too. Yeah, he went too far.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't remember fuck all about it. I mean, it was pretty exciting. Like I got excited for this film when it was announced. Linda Hamilton was back. James Cameron's back. Deadpool was a good film. It all seemed like maybe this could be the one.
Yeah. Okay, so official synopsis is 25 years after the events of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, because this is a direct sequel, and they ignore all other sequels since then. So they're rebooting from directly after Terminator 2.
Legacy sequel.
Yeah. A new modified liquid metal Terminator is sent from the future by Skynet in order to terminate Danny Ramos, a hybrid cyborg human, and her friends. Sarah Connor comes to her aid as well as the original Terminator to fight for the future. So it's integrating the TV series or streaming series and other stuff into the original T2 timeline. So it's really like, I guess if you hadn't watched the Terminator series, the Sarah Connor Chronicles or whatever, then the movie is it's garbled and you don't understand what's going on. And I don't know how it stacks up for the people who did watch the series. I didn't. But yeah, maybe they enjoyed it more because it made more sense to them. But it just wasn't familiar to me. And so I was just like, I don't know who they made this movie for, but it wasn't me.
So for me, this movie was not frightening, not scary. Again, we have characters who really should have been put aside. Sarah Connor and Arnold's Terminator should not have come back. I disagree with James on a lot of these things, and I'm not surprised there were disputes between producer and director. If you're going to do this movie, James, you should have directed it, because the reality is it was really always his vision and his horror, his dream, and everybody who's ever tried to do anything with it has wound up screwing it up. And I think this is one of those times where you start to realize that there's only so much you can get out of something, that maybe the franchise is just 2 movies and that's it, and you can't do anything else with it. Or you have to do a completely reimagining and have a completely different vision for what it would be, but you have to understand what the vision should hold on to and what should let go. And this really made a mess of things really, really badly. They were trying to sort of set up new characters. Somebody else's. Things have moved on. There's, it's not Skynet now, really. It's some other AI thing, and we're dealing with a new character.
Yeah, the cloud, so you can't even fight it. Yeah.
But of course, the cloud is just electronic. You put down enough servers around the world, and there's no more cloud, so probably even easier to deal with.
Don't tell the nerds that the internet is vulnerable. They'll try and destroy it to show
So
that.
you just need a solar flare that's strong enough, another Carrington event, and you don't need to worry about having the internet anymore.
Look, I like the internet. It's where I keep all my stuff.
I know, but it's a possibility. It could happen.
It's my job, for God's sake.
I know. Don't worry. You won't need to worry about having a job if that happens. Everybody will be unemployed. But the reality,
I'll be servicing robots. The reality is, I will be servicing robots at one point.
Exactly. Yeah. And that robot will be.
What's your job? AI wrangler. Yeah.
You'll be growing veggies in the back garden with your spade. Well done.
I will literally be growing vegetables because they'll just turn me into fertilizer.
Yeah. But anyway, the reality is the story did not make a lot of sense. It was not a very good story. It was not scary. It really did not tell a story that we needed to see again. And it also sort of made it clear that, James would have had to have signed off on the script if he was the producer. So I don't feel like this is the fault of everybody but James. I think James was very much part of this. This is a good indication that
he seemed like he was interfering a lot with what Tim Miller wanted to do.
This is a really good indication that James Cameron is not infallible. You don't bet against James Cameron because he's usually got a good movie coming.
Yeah.
But he can make mistakes. And this is probably a mistake where he should not have been a producer. He should have signed off on the script and he should have directed. And that should have been it. And
he's an oceanic explorer who makes movies. Yeah. Not the other way around.
I mean, Legacy sequels were kind of hot at the time as well. So, Halloween, which ironically was one of the inspirations for the original Terminator film. That after massive amounts of shit sequels, that did a hard reboot, which was very successful. So there was this thing like, oh, you don't have to now. You can just get rid of all that messy sort of all those films that you made
became
before.
A thing around that era too. The prequels to like The Thing and stuff like that.
But yeah, don't hire a guy and then just don't have any faith in what he can do if he's got a vision.
Nervous executives who think that just because they contributed money to the movie have some say in the creative process, they need to be shot and beaten in public like they deserve. Particularly the ones that cancel shows when they're before this third season and stuff like that, just when they're getting good.
I think it just came too soon after Genesis as well. I still felt like, didn't we just have a Terminator film?
Yeah, money doesn't make you creative. Just because you've invested in a creative franchise doesn't mean you have any right to change it and stuff like that. Let the creatives do their job, and just step back.
Yeah,
you've invested in it, and then let them do their thing.
Yeah, but also too, you've got to understand. I think that the second movie was the downfall because everybody was trying to remake the second movie. In the third movie, not the fourth movie, but the fifth and the sixth movie, they all have their DNA of trying to redo the second movie, which was made a lot of money. Maybe not as much as a ratio compared to the first one, but it's still $500 million is nothing to to ignore. But the reality is they couldn't do it, and a lot of the elements that needed to be there are not there.
A more interesting movie would have been somebody from the fixed timeline getting thrown into a random experimental time travel thing and then kicking off from the future, the Skynet getting rebooted, and then Skynet says, oh, the only way I'm going to survive now is to leapfrog back before I was invented and this person came in to make sure that I exist before this happens. And that starts the entire T1 timeline. So a loop that expands and sustains itself with an origin, so that you're like, oh, okay, the original timeline gets replaced by the T1 timeline that then becomes a loop that then you have to break out of. That would have been a much more interesting sequel as a T3 movie, I think, rebooting the entire timeline, because the whole concept is rebooting the timeline of the movie franchise as well as the story franchise. So yeah, I would have written the story that way if I was writing a T3 script.
Do we want to talk about the TV shows at all? Do you want me
No.
to? I've got some brief.
I know a little bit about the TV show because I watched the TV show.
Okay.
So for me, Sarah Connor Chronicles had potential. It was built off the end of Terminator 2 Judgment Day in terms of the story and the continuation of Sarah sort of having to avoid everything, keeping John safe. They're on the run, but Sarah is now far more aggressive. Any attempt to reproduce Skynet or anything that was AI was constantly being viewed as something they needed to track down. There was the view that maybe Skynet in the future had sent multiple robots, not just one, into different time zones. So there was always the threat that there was going to be another Terminator, not just the one that showed up in the first movie and the second movie, but we're also going to see more in this series. It had some good episodes. It had some average episodes, and it had some really shitty episodes. But it was still a Sarah Connor TV series, and it had the name Sarah Connor, not the Terminator Chronicles. It's alternative universe. It started to go really alternative universe in terms of the Terminator mythology, and it got really strange. There's some very odd things going on here that sort of alluded to a war or battle between the AI, where you have Skynet and then you have other factions within the robot AI community that are trying to break away from Skynet and do something different. And
you could have really gone multiversal with it and said that Skynet was like an existential threat to parallel universes where it was essentially creating pocket side dimensions, alternate universes, and guaranteeing existence, much like Elon Musk is trying to make humanity multiplanetary. An AI making itself multi-reality. That's a concept that I think people can accept now or start to get their head around. But yeah, only recently have people started to really embrace the idea of the multiverse. Yeah,
I didn't realize it had Lena Headey in it. She's great.
Yeah, which is from Judge Dredd and Game of Thrones. Again, the TV series tried to capture the magic and the feel of the first two movies in different ways. But again, just like all the other movies that were made after the TV series, it was unsuccessful. I think there's one episode and scene which is just unbelievable. It doesn't feel like a TV series. It feels like a movie because they were trying to go for that movie feel with the budget of a TV series. And it had a big budget, but it only lasted 2 seasons. But yeah, I think it was a mistake. I think you can't make this story as a TV show. It's like Star Wars and Marvel. Leave them as movies. They need big budgets to be able to pull them off.
A new TV show just came out in August on Netflix as well, called Terminator Zero, which is an anime, and that's getting very good reviews.
Oh, okay.
But this one, the story takes place in Tokyo in 1997, where a character named Malcolm Lee is working on developing Cora, which is an AI system designed to rival Skynet. Just before Judgment Day, Lee and his 3 children are hunted down by a mysterious robot assassin. A soldier from the future is sent to protect them, leading to an intense battle for survival. So
little did we know that Chat GPT.
So I haven't watched Terminator Zero, but yeah, that's on Netflix.
I've come from the future to kill you. What's your commanding? Dali. It's like, oh, come on.
Your password is not strong enough.
Your password is not strong enough. I knew you
Cannot use
internet
the
nerds
same
would be the end of us all.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Terminator. I think it needs to go back to a low budget. So low budget filmmaking, like both Predator, Aliens have had recent success by not worrying about making a big budget film and giving the franchise to a new young director with no expectations, no pressure to make, because they've written those franchises off. They've kind of thought, oh well, no one cares about these things anymore. So we'll just give, rather than dump the IP. We'll just give it to someone and let them make something with it and
give
see
it
what
to
happens.
me. I'll have them go back and try and assassinate Elon Musk to stop the Tesla AI from.
Both,
hey, I'm an Elon Musk fan. Don't get me wrong.
Both Prey and Alien Romulus are great films. That really just breathe some fresh air into these franchises. And I hope they do the same with Terminator. We're due a decent Terminator film, and I think you just need to stop going back to the well, stop going nostalgia, stop fucking leave Arnold alone, leave Sarah Connor alone, and give it to some young director with a fresh idea, and just let him make, and don't interfere, and just let him make something and see what we get. It can't be any worse than fucking Terminator 3 or Dark Fate or Genesis or.
I think it certainly could be worse than that. I think they could make a worse movie. That's just the age of making things that were worse than they were before. But I agree. I think there are key concepts to the Terminator in terms of its enduring legacy, and that is fear. That was started in the first movie. The fear and the real nightmare people have of the past, and right now, which is the development of artificial intelligence. And this movie sort of highlighted. It's basically the science fiction theme was that it was the new alien attack. Imagine an alien attack, but it's not from another world. It's from our world, and we built it. And that's I think the key to making a Terminator franchise work if you want to make more movies. And the enduring appeal, I think, is down to ultimately the first two movies, and everything else is just really an embarrassment. That again, they fall into that trap of trying to duplicate Judgment Day, and they shouldn't have been trying to duplicate Judgment Day.
Salvation is probably for me, the one that's worth. At least it's something different.
It's on the right track. But I think it's a little bit
expensive, though. Way too expensive.
And they tried to harken too much back to the same old formula and car chases and all that sort of shit. These days the existential threat of AI is definitely something like that people can get behind, because they see how ChatGPT puts fake text, like fake facts and stuff into papers and things and doesn't tell you, and then the idea like that a car might see something that's not real or react to something, a self-driving car starts acting crazy because it's there's that crossover. So it's like, oh, it saw a threat that wasn't real. It's just like, wasn't it? Starts to subvert your reality, and people are starting to not trust reality. That would be interesting.
It's like the formula was: we need to have Arnold. Arnold needs to be the center factor. We can't deviate from that type of Terminator. And then we need to have a new weirder Terminator, and we need to just up that or change that.
What I would have have a faction of people who are like the Luddites, who are anti AI and anti AI art is theft and all that sort of stuff, and they be the crazy subfaction who are considered to be terrorists, because they're blowing up server farms and stuff like that. And then people who are fully embracing AI and are starting to get implants and the new Tesla chip, and they're starting to turn into Terminators. Right, they're getting taken over at certain points. Like they're waking up in the middle of the night, and their body is being controlled by fucking AI. and that would be an interesting precursor, sort of an alternate timeline thing where the AI is that the fear that when we let technology cross that boundary and actually become part of us, giving somebody a genetic treatment that creates a virus which creates a neural pathway that's an organic neural pathway. So it's not even an artificial implant. It's something that you've grown by altering your body using CRISPR and stuff like that. That's a real possibility. And that idea is completely new and fresh, and that's as new as the mimetic polyalloy and the idea of like being invaded or having a machine inside your body, and being a cyborg, but a totally different one from what you conceive. That would be an interesting sci-fi leap. I think that would add to the franchise. So hire me. I'll give you a Terminator movie.
Look, if you're going to do the Terminator again, either you stop at number 2 and you just don't make any more. But I agree.
You go back in time and you kill the rest of the franchises.
You just don't make any more.
Going back in time and deleting all those Terminator movies.
There's a film where Arnold goes back in time and terminates all the directors of the previous films.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, also too, you can't keep playing Sarah Connor and John Connor. I think in many respects, even after watching the Sarah Connor Chronicles and the continuing story of Sarah Connor, I think what it needed to happen is they needed to just stop those characters. Their story was done. A whole generation passes and goes, and there's no AI development because it's all been sabotaged and crushed. But that doesn't mean it won't eventually come. A new generation will eventually have to deal with the development of AI, and to make it work, they have to go back. Terminator has to go back to its roots. It's a horror, just like Alien. You need to go back to the roots of that. So you need to use the dark. You need to make it a horror movie. You need to make it a thriller movie as well. Yes, you need to have action. You need to stop trying to put in nice little cutesy comments and, trying to make it funny to make it general public. You need to shrink down that budget and really just decide how much, special effects do we really need to incorporate to keep it a low budget movie, or not $100 million movie. Like, how much do we need to really show them?
The director needs a big enough budget so that producers won't interfere and go, they're happy enough for him to do something and not go, what are you doing? But I don't like that.
Another interesting thing is that, like, people these days, they know that ChatGPT is creative and can make new text and stuff, but they don't understand how. And the idea that even the programmers don't understand exactly how it works, because it reaches a point where the machines start programming. Like, we are now at the age where machines are programming machines, right?
I don't know how it works.
And right. And doing medical, I do, but doing medical research and stuff, and stuff. So the idea that the machines are starting to talk to each other in ways we didn't expect, that's the existential horror that you can hook into, because people really, really are primed to go, oh, that's the worst case scenario right there. Yeah.
So eliminating time travel, because we don't need it now. We are now in an age where people are starting to think about, right now, there might be a real threat to AI. You've got people who are involved in the development of AI. So you could have you could say, okay, well, they avoided that. Sarah Connor, John did their job. They've died, they passed on. We move in, and then the new generation.
Oh yeah, totally new.
They're not dealing with time traveling robots. They're dealing with the damn things being created right now. AI that's in the cloud, AI that's connected to networks, AI that's separate, AI that can infiltrate anything that's electronic. That's a real threat. That's not a robot. That's just code or a brain somewhere. Who knows where?
Anything could be the Terminator,
and affecting code of any kind and anything that's robotic. And then you also, you've got the military who are creating robots that are very efficient killing machines now. They can do anything, and they can fire guns, and you can shoot at them, and nothing will happen. They will just
sustain themselves off burning human bodies. Yeah, that was a great concept to release on us, military. What a good idea to get the public behind, hearts and minds behind your development, DARPA, you idiots. Should never have said that. Because now everybody's like, robots that eat people. Great. Yeah, the Matrix is real. One thing I would do is I'd incorporate modern UFO stuff, right? Or the UAF, or whatever they call it now. No, not enough people ever considered that this is the robot, the things that we're seeing are not aliens, they're us. like from the future who are observing the past, or it's us from an alternate universe who are probing other realities. And it would explain a lot about what we see because, A, the interest in human beings, for one thing, B, they're not traveling across interstellar distances. They're here already. C, they don't want to interact with us or reveal themselves because it's us, and that would change the timeline. And they appear in important geological events and sociological events in our history, as hindsight shows us and stuff. And that they've only shown up at a certain point, where space exploration and stuff sort of happens. So there's I have a lot of weird theories about these things, but I'm like, maybe it's not aliens, maybe it's actually us, it's a self-fulfilling thing. That would be an interesting tie into a Terminator thing too, as well. Like the AI starts communicating with alternate reality AIs that have found a way to communicate with each other through something we don't even understand, gravity or mathematics or something like that, that would be interesting.
I honestly think that the way to actually make the Terminator franchise work is to look at the existing technology and how could it be just tweaked a little bit and subverted to truly affect people who live right now.
Yeah,
and the
plausible.
military
Just a
has
little bit
robots
plausible.
that can do pretty much what the damn thing did in the movie in the first one. Like they have things that are like that. They have those drones that operate in clouds. Just imagine that being controlled by AI, and it can target specific individuals. It can just send a drone attached to your head, and it explodes up, and your head is gone.
Yeah, the same
Instead
method
of
that
it
we're using
blowing
for
the whole world up and probably taking all the servers on the planet, it's doing what AJ suggested. It's implanting chips into the brains of humans so that they no longer have control over themselves.
Yeah,
It's
That is a true nightmare, because we've literally got people using technology where they put a chip in to help correct brain chemistry and illnesses. Now let's feed on that fear, because those are things that actually exist right now. You just got to put it in the wrong hands. Put it in an AI that does not care about anything but itself, and that will fucking freak people out. And I think
you can't use a toilet because your DNA will go into your waste, which will go into the waste treatment plant, and then the government is tracking waste treatment for COVID-19 monitoring, but they've actually tracked your DNA, and now they know where you last pooped. That's the movie. There we go. Yeah. Welcome to my world, people. I think about these sort of literal shit.
It uses cyberbullying as a way of killing people.
Yeah. Your tweet is unacceptable. Yeah, somebody just got arrested for a tweet over in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to the dystopian future.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. Yeah, there's plenty of ideas out there that you could take this franchise in a totally fresh direction.
Yeah. Crowdsource it. Crowdsource the next script. Let the people tell you their worst fears, and then make them into a movie. Yeah. That's what the Dungeon Master does. Just listens to
it was
their worst scenarios and then make them real.
It was a franchise that was born from a fever dream, so
it
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for that. That was 40 years, and we're still talking about it. So, and considering how many films were there in total?
Six movies.
So what's the
2
percentage
TV
on that?
Series and
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah. So only 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
And we managed to talk about it for 2 hours. So.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Anyone got anything else before we wrap it up?
Go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning and take the horror, the theme, and the thriller aspect of it. Put it in the dark. Make it like a horror movie, a stalker movie, and hell, put it in the woods so you don't have to worry about the city and permits and shit like that. A couple of people, and then suddenly, oh gosh, we're dealing with a whole lot of shit, and the world's gone crazy, but well, we don't understand exactly why it's all gone crazy.
Yeah.
Well, the AI has taken over.
Yeah. Take us to places we really fear, like downtown Beijing, or the depths of Mumbai, where they're picking over trash and stuff. Show us the dystopia that's in our world right now. Give us something fresh.
Yeah. and twist that little sucker and tie in some real world technology that you can't say, well, that can't happen.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We might dive back into Star Wars. Maybe should we wrap that up next week?
Yeah.
Everyone feels like getting angry. I think we're all going to be on the same page.
Or Star Trek.
Do you know? Let's finish Star Wars. Wars. I watched Force Awakens, and I was going to watch the Last Jedi, and the Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, oh, it was. I went through some sort of traumatic experience. Just the idea of sticking the disc into my DVD player, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it to myself. No, but so we've got to do it. Otherwise, our true mental health will be affected. So
we're going to drink that blue milk from that.
Yeah,
sweet.
Is it green milk or blue milk? I don't know.
Blue. It's blue. It's like teal. It's not. No, it's a light blue, baby blue.
Yeah. Whatever you do, when you make that new Terminator movie, people out there, like, do not include blue or green milk or blue or green.
I guess
oil
it's teal. I guess it's teal. Like it's supposed to be blue-green algae, right?
Yeah,
that's what they're going for.
Yeah, no Ryan Johnson.
But the fact that that's all through the Star Wars franchise is like, oh yeah, they're always really eating blue-green shit. That's
All right. Thank you, everyone. We're out of here. Oh, that's good night from me. I forgot my usual thing, didn't I? Good night from me.
And good night from them.
And good night from somebody else.
We'll never figure it out.
Yeah. We need it. Yeah. Anyway.
Good night.
Ciao.